Hello, in this tutorial we will show you how to edit the front page of your website. Upon logging in and being greeted with your dashboard, we will use our mouse cursor to find the title pages, and we will select all pages. This will now load the page, displaying all the available pages on the website. Once the page is loaded, we can either use the search bar to locate the front page, or we can go through the list. As you can see, this page is titled the front page, and hovering over it we have additional options. We can edit, quick edit, trash, view, duplicate, or edit with Elementor. Please note that we will select edit with Elementor, as this is the page builder that we are using. Next, we will allow the page to load fully before we continue. Please note that this is all dependent on your internet speed. The faster your internet, the faster the page will load. As you can see, my internet has taken a dip and it is taking longer to load. Now that the page is loaded fully, we will begin. There are three main elements when creating your page. First, we will start with a section. As you can see, hovering around the page, sections are highlighted. First, as I said, we will start with a section. As you can see, I have highlighted the section, and you can tell that by the blue box. By selecting the 6 dots at the top, we can edit the section. As you can see, a bar on the left hand side has appeared. Here, we start with the layout. We can choose to stretch the section, change the content width, change the column gap, the height of the section, vertical alignment, the overflow, and so forth. Moving on to the structure section, we can change. As you can see, this section currently has got 2 columns in it. Therefore, we have a structure of 50 and 50. Next, we will move on to the styling section. Here, we can choose to change the background. We can choose to change the background to an image. By selecting Choose Image here, a new window will appear. By default, it will take us to the media library. This shows us all the currently available images loaded on the website. We are also able to upload a new image by selecting Upload Files, saying Select Files, and locating them on our computer. Once we have selected the image we wish to use, we will select it and a blue box will appear around it. Once we are happy, at the bottom right, we will simply select Insert Media. As you can see, it has inserted the image into the background. Following this, we can change the position of the background image. We can set it to center center. We can change the attachment so that it can scroll, or we can keep it to where it is fixed. We can also change if we wish to repeat the image, which you cannot see because the image is fairly large, and we can actually change the size of the image. Now I will simply remove this image. We can do that by selecting the trash icon over the image. As you can see, the image has disappeared. We can also change the color of the background. As you can see, we currently have a specific color entered. I will copy this for the time being, and I can simply use the slider to change the background color to whichever color we wish. I will now set that back to its original. We will close this and we will continue. We're also able to add scrolling effects and mouse effects to this section. Moving on to the background overlay. Here we are able to add an overlay to the background. To do this, we will simply select the type. We can choose to have an image overlay. As seen here, I will use this image. We will insert it. And as you can see, that image has now appeared. Here again, we can change the position, attachment, repeat, and size, as well as the transparency of this background. For the time being, I will remove this, and we can do a color overlay as well. We can select red, and then we can change the intensity of the red. I will set that back to default, and we will move on. In the border section, we are able to add a border to the entire section. By selecting the border type, you will see the border appear. Here we can change the width of said border, the color of the border, and even the border radius. Border radius will be the edges defining how curved it is. We can also change so that we can set a different border for when you hover over it. This is the same as before. I will now go back and I will remove the border. Next, we will come on to the shape divider. Here we can choose to have a shape divider at the top or the bottom of the section. We will choose a style, in this case drops, and you can see the shape divider will appear at the top. We can change the color of the said drops. We can change the height. We can flip the entire image. Divider, my apology. We can invert it. We can bring to the front or even hide. I will now set this back, and for the bottom it is exactly the same. We select our type, our color, our height, and so forth. Next, in the typography, we can change the colors. Lastly, in the advanced section, we have our margin and our padding. As you can see, our margin currently has nothing in it. If I was to insert 50, you will see that the spacing at the top has increased by 50 pixels, as well as the spacing on the bottom. This is because the top and the bottom is tied or linked by this button. We can unlink it, and we can make the bottom however much we wish. As you can see, we made the bottom 150, and it is 3 times the size of the top. We will set that back to 0, the default, and you can see you can even do negative numbers to move the entire section up. Again, we will set this back to 0, back to default, not 0, and we'll move on to the padding. The padding, as you can see here, is all linked together. We will delink it, and we will, my apologies, I did that incorrectly. We will delink it and change everything to 0, and as you can see, if I put in the top a padding of 50, this sizing will increase by 50. If I remove that and I put the padding on the right at 100, you will see the size on the right will increase. I've set it to 1000, and you can see the size will change. I will now link that back together, and I will remove it. Please note that the margin and padding is more for in-depth development, and you should not really require this. Moving on to the motion effects, we can add a scrolling effect. As you can see here, we can change if it is sticky or not. We can also add an animation for the entrance, and underneath the responsiveness we can choose to hide it on desktop, mobile, or tablet. In the attributes, this is more for development purposes, and you will not require this. The same for the custom CSS. That is how you would edit the section. Next, we will move on to an actual column. Using our mouse cursor, again we will navigate around the site, and you will see a dotted black line appear around a column. By selecting the edit column at the top left, the window on the left hand side will appear again. Here we have the layout settings, and as you can see we currently have a column width of 54.08. We have a vertical alignment of default, which we can change to top if we wish, but we will set it back to default, again with the horizontal alignment, the widget spacing, and so forth. Moving on to the styling tab of the column, we can change the background. Here we will choose a color, and we will make it red. As you can see, this background color applies only to this column. Here we'll set this back to default, and as you can see we can even add an image as the background. By selecting an image and choosing to insert, the image will appear in the background. Again, we can change the position, alignment, repeat, and size of the background image, but for the time being we will remove it. Scrolling down, again we have the background overlay, which will be the same for the section, except it applies only to this column. To show you this, I will change the background overlay to a red. As you can see, it only applies to that column. I will revert that back to default, and we will continue. Again, in the border, we are able to choose to add a border to this column. Again, we can change the width, color, and border radius. We will set that back to none, and we can change the typography. which is not needed because there is no text in this column. Lastly, in the advanced section, again we have our margin and padding, which we can use to change the spacing. Again, we have our motion effects, our responsive settings, and so forth. Moving away from the column, we will now edit an actual widget. Again, we will use our mouse cursor to navigate. As you can see, I've navigated over this text, and it is indicated that there is a widget there by the blue border. By simply selecting the Edit button, the window on the left-hand side will appear. Here, you can see the text, which we can change, and the results will happen live. We will simply delete that, and we will move on to the styling section. Here we can change the alignment of the text. We can change the color, which is currently black. We can change the typography. By selecting this little pen icon, we can choose to change the font, the size of the font, as seen here. The weight, we can transform it to uppercase, lowercase. We can change the style, we can add a decoration, and we can change the line height and letter spacing. We will close this window and we'll move forward. Again, in the Advanced tab, we have our margin and padding, which will change the spacing. Moving away from this widget, to edit the next widget, we will do the same thing. We will use our mouse cursor and highlight the section we are wishing to edit and simply select the Edit button. Next, I will show you how to edit a button widget. By selecting the Edit icon, the window on the left will appear. Here we can change the type of the button, the text for the button, the link where the button will take you, the alignment of the button, the actual size, and we can even add an icon to the button. Moving on to the styling section, here we can change the button typography, which includes the font, the size, and so forth. We can also add a text shadow to this button, and we can change the color. As you can see, we currently have a text color of white, which we can simply change. We also have a background color set to this blue, which we will not change. Again, here we can change the border type of this button. So here we can insert a solid border with a width of 5, and we can make that border red. My apologies, we can make the border red. And you will see the results happen live. We'll set that back to default, and we will move on to the advanced section. Again, our margin and padding will be for the spacing for the button. As you can see, that is how you would edit the front page. You would simply use your mouse cursor to select either the widget, the column, or the entire section that you are wishing to edit. You can simply scroll through the entire website and change anything you wish. That is how you would update or edit the front page of your website.